Neal, I'm about to press the button that plays the music. Are you ready?
Hold on, I got a button. Let us begin. Boo.
Here we go.
No, they can't get far.
Escaping the realm of darkness. The paranormal guys are on a quest to find the answers to the hard questions of where the normal meets the paranormal and the weird, and where the natural meets the unnatural. So grab your holy water, call your mama, and get ready for the Paranormal Guys podcast.
Hello, everyone. Today's date is September 3rd, 2023. And this broadcast is going to be going out on September 7th. Once again, we pre-recorded with a Mr. Don Schmitt. Don Schmitt is a world-renowned researcher on Roswell, New Mexico, 1947. We talked to him, and this is such a great interview. And Don Schmitt, right off the bat, if you've never met the man or gone to anything where he does a speaking engagement, well, guess what, boys and girls? You should. He is a very good speaker. He will keep you in your seat throughout the whole time that he is speaking to you and his audience. And he's just a really nice guy. I mean, really cool dude. And his wife, very nice lady. Very nice lady. I met her. Me and Steve met Don Schmitt at Sam Moranto's thing at Starved Rock.
A few years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. And I went to the last one that was this year, Steve. And I sat there and listened to him again. And I was able to get him to come on to this podcast here. And it's such a delight that we were able to talk with him. You're going to see in it, we are going to touch upon Roswell. We are going to talk about other things that are going on in the MUFON community, aliens and UFOs, UAPs,
Men in Black,
flying saucers, whatever you want to call them.
We even get into Men in Black.
Oh, yeah, we even get into Men in Black. So
Pretty cool.
After the news here, I hope you enjoy this very good interview with a very well-renowned man by the name of Don Schmitt. He also wrote a book called Roswell, many books actually. I believe he was one of the producers of the movie called Roswell that came out many years ago. So when I'm able to interview someone like this, Steve, I just get very, very excited because you have someone who's really, really good and is able to explain things very well,
Right. And he's one of the best. So we got a great interview. So prepare for that, everybody. If you like UFOs, if you like that sort of paranormal conversation, if you like the old Art Bell episodes with UFOs and aliens, you're going to really like to hear Don Schmitt have a conversation with Neal and I.
Yeah.
So
stand by for that. But until then, we're going to make a couple of announcements. We're going to get into the news like we always do. But as usual, Steve, what's going on in your life? What's new? What's different? What's kicking?
Yeah, that's a good question. I just heard that Bob Barker died today.
Yeah.
Now, that man lived a very long life. And I think he touched a lot of lives. It's a good run. 99?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely
lived a very long life. Another death that happened, actually two deaths. I know you're not into wrestling or anything like that, but me and my son are. Terry Funk died. He was a pioneer in the wrestling organization, just a pioneer. I mean, he was just awesome, man. The other one, Bray Wyatt died. He was only 36 years of age. He died of a heart attack.
Oh, and there's a lot of that going on.
Otherwise known as the Fiend. And his character, I mean, this guy, he could come up with such good characterization in his characters. It's a shame to see anybody die, of course, but this young man, Bray Wyatt, he was really, really good at what he did. It's a shame, and he will be a terrible loss for that.
Yeah.
But moving on, and sorry to use the word moving on.
Take care of your ticker, everybody.
Yeah, you never ever know, man. You never know. Go to the doctor, check on yourself. Do what you need to do to take care of yourself.
Eat some vegetables.
What's that?
Eat some vegetables.
Well, yeah, definitely eat vegetables and eat your fruit. Eat fruit and vegetables, kids.
Mhm.
So, we have some things that are coming up. Our tickets have gone on sale for this October. We are doing more this year for tours. We have our annual nightlife tour that we always do. That'll be on Fridays and Saturday nights, starting off Friday the 13th, Steve. Friday the 13th
Nice.
kicks off our nightlife
Right.
tours this year out of 115 Bourbon Street, located in Marionette Park, Illinois. You can go to our Facebook page and you can go there and click on for any kind of tickets through our Eventbrite page. The other things that we have some special ones this year. We have 2 Thursday tours. One of the first ones is going to be October 19th, and that's going to be with Mr. Tony Sobalski, legendary Tony Sobalski. Everybody just loves this guy. Good guy, just a good guy. You know, what you see is what you get with Tony, just a good person. He is going to be doing the Archer Avenue tour, the Supernatural Archer Avenue tour. This one there is just about a 3.5 hour tour, where our nightlife tour is about a 4.5 hour tour. There is a difference in those tours. So, and he's going to be the host on that one. And then on October 26th, we are going to be having Mr. Bob Anderson from Bob After Dark. He is going to be your host for that one. He is going to be out there putting his show on the road with each and every one of you with all of a sudden the Supernatural Archer Avenue. And as usual, our girl, the little horror girl,
Yes.
I have to learn to pronunciate, horror girl,
Little horror.
Kylie, is going to be out there as also helping along with those 2 Thursday tours. I'm excited about those. Very excited about that. Then we also have a Mr. Pete Christ, who is going to be doing the overnight Roth House that we've done. This is our 3rd annual one where we're going to be doing that. It's going to be selling up to 12 tickets. He is a very well-to-do person who has been doing this a long time. He's been a well-to-do investigator for many years. He knows what he's doing. So you're going to have someone who's going to be able to be out there and help you along as you go along. And you get to use all of our equipment. Everything that Graveside Paranormal owns, which we own a lot of stuff. Believe me, my pocketbook is killing me. So we have all that, and you're going to be able to utilize it. Any EVPs that you get, we are going to send to your email. So we make
tell people what that is, though. So, like, basically, the Roth House, for those who haven't been following, or maybe you're just picking up on our show for the first time, the Roth House is the first. It's the place of the first documented possession in the United States.
Yes.
And this evening that we're talking about, Pete Chris is going to be able to. He's a very seasoned investigator. He's going to take you through this house, and you're going to investigate it. If you haven't been on a paranormal investigation, but you're interested in the paranormal, it's good to go for the first time with somebody who's very experienced, who can walk you through the process, and to have equipment that you don't have to buy yourself, and you can see what works for you and maybe what doesn't. It's a great opportunity for a new person into the paranormal, but also anybody who's got the Roth House on their bucket list, because the Roth House is a very important place to go. If you're into the paranormal, you get disembodied voices throughout the house. Neal and I have heard them. Even I, with the bad hearing, have heard it. A little girl behind us going, I think something to the effect of, hi. It was really creepy.
Dude, that was creepy. Everybody in the group, when we had them down in the basement, Steve, everybody was like, what the heck was that, man? It's a very spiritually active home. You do get a lot of evidence from this, and that's what we want to send to you. So even though you may not hear something with your ears or anything like that, like I tell everybody, and I'm very repetitive about this, but I'm going to tell you, when you investigate something, it's about the evidence that you gather. And you, ladies and gentlemen, when you come out there, you will gather your evidence. You will take it back to your house via your email, and you will be able to discover if you captured anything. And then you put that away somewhere, and, you keep that as a little memento for yourself that, hey, I was at the Roth House, and I was able to catch this EVP. And the cool thing about it is, for you guys and girls out there who are just getting into learning how to investigate, the Roth House is the best place, one of the best places to start it off. We're not going to throw you in a place where we guarantee you that you're going to get possessed or anything like that.
No.
The story
or scratched or anything.
The storyline, is attached to the tickets. So it explains it about a little girl by the name of Mary Roth and Lorancy Venom. It's a very interesting story. So make sure you read up to it, and it will also be presented to you at the Roth House. Also, we are going to be doing, for the first time ever, we are going to be doing a tour called Otherworldly Orland Park. Me and Steve are going to be out there on the 26th. We're going to be out there. We're doing for Orland Park at the John Humphrey House. Supposedly, this house is supposed to be haunted, and we're going to take you to other haunted destinations, partially of the Orland Park area, and have to deal with Orland Park. So we're going to be
haunted is Orland Park?
I don't know, and I'm going to be honest with people, is that we are going to be going out there, and we have to gather evidence to see what really is going on. But there's some very interesting stories. One of the antique stores is supposed to be haunted that we're going to be talking about. And what I'm going to be talking about there, I'm going to be talking about how all of a sudden objects become haunted. So that's going to be part of our thing that's going to be on that tour. And of course, we're going to have the No Name Doll out there as an example to explain to you about haunted objects. So
what is the No Name Doll for those who are just tuning in?
All right. So the No Name Doll is a doll that I purchased as just like a gag, as you know, just to put on the bus so people go, oh my God, it's a little doll. But unbeknownst to us, there's a possibility that might be an attachment in this.
No, I think that doll's haunted. That's my personal opinion. That thing's haunted.
Yeah. So, but if you want to come out and you want to hear about the story about the No Name Doll, it's in a little bag. We have to keep it inside of a bag because
don't open the bag.
Don't open the bag. You know. Yeah. Eyewitnesses have said that they've seen it move. Is it happening? I really don't know. But here's what's the interesting thing. We get an effect that does happen with the doll, which me and my wife have both witnessed. People start gravitating towards this doll, and they want to hold this doll, and they don't want to let it go. So what's really going on with this haunted doll?
One of the steps of possession is obsession.
Obsession? Yes, it is. Very good.
Interesting.
Yeah. So come on out for that. And also we're going to be doing the open house on the 29th.
Yes, let's not forget that.
29th of October at the Roth House. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it where it's an open house all day long. It's only $10, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to get 15 to 20 minutes on each floor with a group of 6, where you're going to be able to get recorders to try to capture EVPs. And once again, we're going to send it to your email. This is not an overnight one, which is the 28th, where it's from 8 p.m. to about 3 a.m. in the morning.
That's the next day.
It's the next day where we're going to be going from 12 o'clock. No, it's actually 1 o'clock to about 8 o'clock at night. $10 a ticket. That's nothing. We're also going to have Mr. Jacob Mayfield out there. Mr. Jacob Mayfield, mind reader. He's also a tarot card reader. He's going to be out there. That is a separate cost. But he is very well known in the Chicagoland area. So come on out to the Roth House and come join us this October.
Yeah, don't forget the best part. We'll be there.
Duh. I don't have to give that away.
If you guys want to come out and meet us, we'd be happy to see you.
It's and we're going to be out there. We're going to be out there for that one as well. So join us this October. We got a lot on our plate. So we're going to make sure that each and every one of you has a good experience. That's our goal. Make sure that you are going to have the best experience that Graveside Paranormal can give you and the paranormal guys.
That's right.
So with that being said, let's show some things that we're also going to be doing, Steve. We got Fringe Fest. Well, all right. Well, here we'll go to the Paranormal Guys podcast right here. The Haunted Rock Island YMCA on October 7th. We are going to be out there from 10 a.m. till about 6 p.m. There's many other groups that are going to be out there. This sounds very interesting. Sponsored by Paraflix, Studio 6 Productions, WLTK DB radio station, looks like, Unturned Pages, and Ocean Eye Crystals. These are all sponsors of this event that we're going to be at. We're going to be out there as a vendor. We're just promoting ourselves and the podcast that you're listening to right now. Another one, we are going to be out with Pat and Rebecca at the Elgin Fringe Fest on, actually, I believe it's the 9th that we're going to be out there, September 9th. Okay. And we're going to be out there around 7:30. We're going to be doing a live podcast with Ghostly Podcast, Pat and Rebecca, our friends.
Mhm.
And I've been to the Elgin. We're going to be going into the Elgin Public House. This is a very nice place. It's an older place. Supposedly, it's haunted.
Is that the pub?
Yeah, that's the pub that we've been to, where we had like that chili.
That's amazing.
Oh, that was good food. Good food. And this is like an all-day event from like the 1st all the way up to the 10th. So this is a whole 10 days of different events that are going on for people. So come join us. We're going to be out there on the 9th. Come join us with Ghostly Podcast out there. What's another thing we got going on? We got anything else, Steve? I know we got a lot on our plate going on.
That's quite a bit.
That's too much. But
if we have one more thing. Yeah. Oh, we'll do it. I don't know. Can we handle one more thing?
Oh, we can always handle one more thing. It'll probably drive you nuts that I put something on our plate, but
it's fun. We got a really cool October coming, so get ready.
Yeah. So come on out. I hope every one of you wants to enjoy it with us. That'll be a great time. So moving on to the news, weird news. Steve, roll the weird news thing, and we're going to come right out with this subject matter.
Let's do the news.
To the news. All right, the paranormal guys, weird news report. Now, this news here is actually a throwback to the 1920. Okay.
1920.
I came across this story, Steve. This story here, I never even heard this story before. But this story here is completely nuts. And I mean, oh my God. Let me start it off. In 1920, Charlie McCarthy became famous in one of the first shows by introducing Edgar, a puppet, a ventriloquist puppet with quite a different characteristics from a normal one. It represented an 8-year-old boy. His complexion, he was plump, and his facial features were very expressive and somewhat chilly. And even though his eyes were made of wood, it could reflect a look of sadness or even evil. Still, what made McCarthy grow and turn him into a master was the ability to change his voice in an extremely different way and without showing any facial movement when interpreting Edgar's voice. This is what caught the attention of many people who followed him through his tours. However, not all people thought the same back then. There were many who were suspicious and started rumors of McCarthy being an apprentice of witchery or the devil, since they believed that he used some evil trick to make the puppet speak. This rumor spread so fast that people began banning children from attending his performances. People started talking even more about the topic when it was found out that McCarthy had a strange fascination with the puppet. He used to take care of him as if it was his own son and didn't allow the public or the work staff to get close to Edgar the puppet. He was the only one who could touch and keep him inside this box. At the end of his career ended one night while McCarthy was touring in the United States. When the show was over, he went to the dressing room and locked himself for hours. The theater workers realized that he was still inside the place, so they knocked on the door, but McCarthy did not answer. After countless rumors that ran over the star, it was expected that the employees feared coming into the room. They decided to call the police, thinking the worst. Then they arrived and forced the dressing room door open. They found something that left them totally in shock. McCarthy was lying on the ground, lifeless, his neck completely destroyed and soaked in red blood. Not that there's any other color of blood. After reacting to the terrible scene, the authorities focused on finding Edgar. They thought some individual had entered the dressing room in order to take McCarthy's life and steal the puppet Edgar. But when they found the box and opened it, the puppet was there with a penetrating and chilling gaze that even the officers themselves feared to grab him. But it was necessary to, since they had to carry out the investigation to discover who had caused the horrible tragedy of Charlie. While analyzing the puppet, they discovered something even more terrifying, ladies and gentlemen. The investigation of McCarthy's death was interrupted when they found out that Edgar was not actually a puppet, but actually the body of a child. Steve, this is creepy upon creepy. Show up that picture one more time. I know we were holding it there, but I want you to realize that was a latex mask that was on that little boy there, about 8 years old, maybe 7 to 9 years of age. And when they found that puppet, they took off the mask and they found a white, pale little boy underneath the mask. And what they did was they also found that on the hands had fingerprints. They were not able to identify this child. And they were never able to question Charlie because guess what? He's dead. There was no other answers. But this, oh my God, Steve, when I heard about this, I said, I got to talk about this. This is nuts. It's
What if it was always a different little dead boy?
Ooh, man, you bring up something interesting. What if
Maybe
he was going from town to town?
Yeah. And then he would just like put the latest one in.
Put the newest one in. Yeah, and if it was dead, actually you kind of make a point because after a while it's going to smell.
Well, yeah, I mean, like
not that I've killed anybody, but
No, but was it petrified? Did he like
I don't know. Some kind of embalming? I don't know.
Yeah, like resin around it. They do that. You ever go to that Museum of Science and Industry and they have the bodies that are like in epoxy?
Yeah.
Like, that's creepy.
So what happened was after that, I decided to get my own little puppet, Steve. Let's show that. Yep. It's actually an AI. It doesn't really even look like me.
No, it looks like
similar.
Like
but the puppet definitely looks like me.
It's like when you walk through a field and you smell like something a horse left on the ground.
Yeah.
But that expression on your face. Now, is that a little dead boy in that dolly you're holding?
I don't know. Maybe, those are one of those nice AI pictures that Steve likes to create. So, but
it always puts you in a cemetery. I don't know why.
I don't know why. It always puts me in a cemetery. I don't know why. I don't know.
I like that picture.
Yeah. I liked it too. I just didn't look like me, but I love the doll.
It doesn't look like you.
If I can get that doll. I should see if someone can make that doll.
Yeah.
Please, if you were a good creator out there, I'll pay you the money to do it. Can you make that doll for me? I mean, that would be an awesome doll to have, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm working.
Yeah. I'm working on the AI.
Maybe I can get Michelle to make that.
Maybe Michelle. Yeah, Michelle could make that for us.
I bet you she could make that. I bet you Michelle could make that for us.
She could probably imbue it with the spirit of something.
Oh, let's not get too far.
I'm just saying.
Well, that's my news. It's a very interesting news. I just when I came across it, man, I had to talk about this.
That wasn't news. That was a creepy
story,
haunted story. I like it. That's a campfire story.
Man, I was like, damn, that's not man. That gave me the creeps when I read about that. I never even heard that before until the other day. All right, Steve, what do you got for us?
They ever find the killer?
No, they never found a killer. They didn't find the identity of the child, the puppet, or why it happened because Charlie's dead. But no matter what, there was a knife inside the room, and all that was inside this room was the puppet and Charlie. Weird. That's weird. That's
the puppet did it. I know it.
The puppet did it.
Yep. All right. So here's my news. Nowhere near the quality of that, but still a little interesting.
Okay.
Neal, would you pay $450 to have a picnic where you're dangling 295 feet over a thundering waterfall?
Oh, hell no. you dude, I have to pay you $450 to dangle me. You should be paying me.
Well, a Brazilian adventure firm is offering thrill seekers a unique opportunity to enjoy a picnic at a wooden table suspended above the thundering Cascata da Sepultura. I know I'm not pronouncing that right. In the state of Rio Grande do Sul. The breathtaking experience recently went viral thanks to a short clip posted by an American couple who found it while looking for special things to do in Brazil. In the video, Christiana Hurt and her rapper boyfriend on point up, I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, okay.
can be seen casually enjoying some snacks and a glass of red wine and a picnic table suspended on a bunch of metal wires high above the Cascada da Sepultura. The whole experience apparently lasts only 15 minutes and costs $450. There's some other things you could probably do the last 15 minutes and cost only $450.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that.
They might be just as dangerous as dangling over,
especially if you're in a foreign country. Yes.
Yes.
So, saying that, they're only getting snacks and some red wine.
And red wine.
If I'm paying $450, my man, you're going to be at least putting a Subway sandwich in there. Something. Because there's no way I'm going to go sit there and have some carrots and some cheese and celery and some red wine. You're out of your mind.
And they're like all relaxed about it.
Yeah, bullshit. I mean, those people are there. That girl, I can guarantee, is scared as heck. He's scared as hell because that's not normal. I wouldn't do that. Not me. For $450, I can find better things to spend $450 for 15 minutes. You know.
So if they gave you $450, would you do it?
No, I'm not going out. I do have a fear of heights. Have a fear of heights. I've done things to get over my fear. Like I've jumped off that thing at Las Vegas, that big steeple.
You bungee jump?
Yeah, I bungee jumped off that damn thing.
Oh, wow.
And scared the heck out of me. But I did it, man. I did it because I had to try to fear it. But get rid of the fear. But you never get rid of fear of heights. You do it all day long and you still have the fear. But
did you ever go to the I guess they call it Willis Tower now, but it's always going to be the Sears Tower to me.
Yeah, where they do that little dip or whatever.
Did you ever see that? Or you walk out and it's like glass?
Yeah. All right. Well, that's an interesting story, but $450, my man, I'm not giving you $450 for that experience. Oh, hell no. I'd rather go to a carnival where they go with one of those little boats that go up and down. Man, I ain't doing that. All right. Well, Steve, thank you very much for your news. And ladies and gentlemen, next, Mr. Don Schmitt. Once again, I can't say anything more about this interview, and I hope to have Don Schmitt in our further investigation.
We have stories. To do part 2, and and because this episode, it went deep, it went in a really cool direction, but it also opened up, like, I don't want to call it a sequel, but there's room for part 2. Many. Don has so much information. He's a great person to talk to. Very entertaining. You guys are going to love this. And hopefully we'll do part 2. Oh, yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Next, Mr. Don Schmitt. As always. Boo. Boo.
Oh, Neal. I wish I had just one more chance to go on your tour.
Oh, hello. Well, guess what? You do this year. This October Halloween season, Graveside Paranormal is going to give you the best of the best. Come on out for our annual nightlife tour, which we are going to actually start off on Friday the 13th at 115 Bourbon Street every Friday and Saturday night in October. And guess what, boys and girls? You come out also, guess what? On Thursday nights, 2 Thursdays, October 19th and October 26th, we are going to be having a tour from the Branding Iron, the Pavilion. It'll be going out there. On the 19th, you're going to have special guest host, who is going to be Mr. Tony Sobowski. And on the 26th, which is another Thursday night, you're going to have Mr. Bob from Bob After Dark. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to once again get into St. James Cemetery at night for a nice little lantern tour. Most of you will be able to grab a little lantern and we're going to walk through the cemetery at night. So come on out this October and enjoy the great stories that Graveside Paranormal delivers. And as always, boo.
Get tickets at tours.gravesideparanormal.com. Boo.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Hello, everyone. This is Neal with the Paranormal Guys podcast, and this is Steve, my co-host, Mr.
Hello.
Stephen Leinweber. And guess what, boys and girls, children of all ages? We have Mr. Don Schmitt in here today. We are going to be talking about 1947. We're going to go into our time machine, go our Wayback Machine, and we're going to go to July of 1947. We're going to talk about Roswell, New Mexico.
Nice.
This is such an interesting story. I know we deal with paranormal, but we deal with everything because we're the paranormal guys. We want to learn a little bit about everything. We want to have knowledge. What's that?
It's all connected.
It's all connected, man.
I think.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
But without any further ado, let me give the bio on Mr. Don Schmitt. I am so happy. This is making my day, dude. This is totally making our day. You know? All right. Author of many books on Roswell, Area 51, and many other books of conspiracies in the UFO community. Also an investigator and an awesome speaker. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this man will keep you in your seat for at least a good 2 hours. Speaker on the subject of Roswell, Area 51, Mr. Donald R. Schmitt, is a former co-director of the J. Allen Hynek Center for UFO Studies, where he served as director of special investigations for many years. Mr. Don Schmitt, come on in.
Gentlemen, pleasure.
How are you today, sir?
Good day. Happy to be with you.
Man, I'm happy to be with you.
Wow.
I'm so happy to be with you. Don, we're going to start off real quick. I want to ask you a question I usually ask everybody. How did you get into ufology?
Of all segues, it was as a result of the Kennedy assassination.
Mm.
And I was a young boy that weekend of November 22nd, 1963. And I was home alone with my mother. My father was on a business trip that weekend. And so I was just captivated. I was glued to the TV for 4 solid days, watching, you know, as far as the emotional roller coaster that the entire country was experiencing at that time. And then the investigation that followed with the Warren report and the attacks, the labeling of it as being a whitewash and a cover-up, and all the suspicions that came to the fore as a result. And it was just a few years later, I was out Christmas shopping with mom and dad, and I was already an avid book reader. And with my younger brothers and other young people my age, you know, they would have their Christmas list. Well, my list was always book titles. 6 years old already, I wanted books.
Mm.
And so there was a particular book that caught my eye, and there it was right on the cover, using those very words, whitewash, cover up. And the book was entitled Flying Saucers, Serious Business by Frank Edwards.
Mm.
And there was one specific chapter that truly enthralled me, and that was entitled Who's Driving? So it got into all the occupant reports, that type of thing. So, but I was hooked. I could not get my next UFO book soon enough. And it was like, how can anyone ignore this story? You're talking the biggest, you know, event of the millennium. There's nothing that comes close to this. And it would just disappoint me to no end that I didn't matter what adults and by what education level I'd be speaking with. It's like, how can you not be captivated by just the possibility? Mm-hmm. And it was like, that doesn't affect me. Why should I bother? Well, but it's still the biggest story of the last 1,000 years. And I've loved history, and I love the fact that as history goes, this would be almost at the top. And it just, my enthusiasm for it has not waned at all, because as I have become more and more directly involved, and at first as an investigative trainee with the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, and at that time, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the former director or scientific consultant at Project Blue Book with the Air Force, and then the founder for the Center for UFO Studies in Chicago, that he came across some of my case reports, and he invited me to his home in Evanston. Hmm. And how would you like to start working for me? And I would eventually become one of his special investigators. And it was like, whoa. I mean, I was catapulted to working for the #1 scientist in the entire UFO field at that time. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't have had a better mentor, better teacher, a better friend. gentlemen, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think to myself, what would Alan say? What would Alan do? Alan Hynek. And so, I couldn't have started with a better foundation.
Good. You know, Don, you have like the energy of a 25-year-old man. Let me tell you.
Yeah, like I remember being this energetic. That was a long time ago.
I mean, I gotta take my energy drinks and stuff like that. But damn,
but it's great. And you know what?
I don't even drink coffee. So it's love
great.
of life. Love of life. That's
if someone talked to you on the phone, they would be thinking that they're talking to a 25-year-old man. I'll tell you that.
But a wise one.
I'll be honest with you too. My dad lived to be 89, and what was wonderful about him was his memory, his mind never, wavered at all. I mean, to the very day before he died, he still was as sharp as a tack, and his voice. You could talk to him over the phone, and you would swear you were talking to a 40-year-old man, even at that age. So good genes as well.
But it's also helps to be passionate, like you are, about this subject, and like you say, a lot more people should be. This is an age-old question that it touches on: are we alone? And even if it doesn't answer that, even if it's not about that at all, even if it's about a cover-up of some other kind, we do want to know who's in the driver's seat. We do want to know why we don't know certain things and why the government might try to hide something from us.
Right. Well, precisely, and why? If we cite the example of the last time that former President Bill Clinton was on the Jimmy Kimmel show, and this is all they talked about, and the president went on, and then he lamented the fact that I had 8 years in the Oval Office and I couldn't get the truth about Roswell.
Yeah.
Well, the point being, so there is a truth even above the president. There's a there. And it's just being part of that chase, that elusive phantom that always seems to, stay at one step ahead of us. And as I've often said too, I really have never concerned myself with who inevitably solves the mystery, as opposed to I want to remain in the race. I want to be at the finish line whatever the end result. Whether we're talking about something extraterrestrial, whether we're talking something interdimensional, time travel, what have you, it nonetheless will still go down as one of the greatest mysteries of all time.
That you were there.
What an adventure. Yeah, what an adventure.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. We're actually like that with the paranormal community. We like to find out why certain things go on. But just like the ufology community, the paranormal they go hand in hand, actually. Because there's things that people believe that when they see certain things might actually be alien presence. So
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. In fact, we've very often explored how the different aspects of the phenomena tend to overlap. And for years, we've known that people who tend to be more psychically inclined, for example, more intuitive, they tend to have UFO experiences.
Right.
They're people that typically, as juxtaposed to someone always looking for loose change on the ground, they're peering up into the stars and just letting their mind wander, just daydreaming and just accepting the possibility that my God, just look at the expanse of the universe and what else may be out there.
Right.
And so it's as though it's this beacon that just constantly is drawing us into the unknown. And it's only unknown because we still have the naysayers, we still have the scoffers, we still have the debunkers who say, if I don't have all the answers, then they don't exist.
Right.
It's like the late Carl Sagan. He would always, he would downplay the UFO phenomena and suggest that, well, certainly if an intelligence off the planet were visiting planet Earth, they would visit me first. Well, talk about just the ultimate arrogance, but that's part of their shtick. The idea that if we don't have the answers, then they don't exist.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing subject. Everything, they all kind of correlate together, from the paranormal to ufology. It's just an amazing thing. Like your friend Sam Maranto, our friend Sam Maranto, awesome man, awesome. Love talking to the guy. Had him on our show many times, and when you listen to a lot of these people's stories, like Betty and Barney Hill, let's talk about Betty and Barney Hill for a second. Amazing stories. They're seeing things that they can't really make out at first. In our community, there's a thing called shadow people.
Yes.
Okay, that people see that these dark shadows of people. Could these be actually aliens? They're coming in and out through an interdimensional type thing,
Like a bleed over?
maybe some kind of bleed over
type.
or could it, or is it something paranormal, supernatural? I don't know.
I have no problem accepting as far as that possibility. In fact, Dr. Hynek, again, used to suggest that if we would have 1 or 2 good UFO sightings globally per year, it would be much more suggestive of something traversing these vast distances between point A and point B. The fact that we have UFO experiences and sightings and psychic phenomena going on a day-to-day basis, it's something that is here. It's something that is within our midst, and it's able to materialize. It's able to transform and appear in one location and then slip into another location. We don't know where it goes, whether it is another dimension or a porthole or whatever one might speculate, but nonetheless, it doesn't make it any less alien. It doesn't make it any less foreign in that regard. And it's just that when it does slip into our third dimension, it does materialize. It does interact with the environment. It does leave remnants. I mean, in the case of Roswell, where it left crash debris, it's just as physical in our dimension as it would be in their own, but nonetheless, it's able to traverse as far as slip in, at will. And I think it's one of the reasons when we pose the question, like, why do UFOs have all these lights? Why are they lit up like Christmas trees at times? Why are they every conceivable shape under the sun? Why are the occupants described like everything from little grays to the Michelin tire man to Robotoid to Nordic to 8 foot tall, on and on and on, based on even the cultures that would describe them. So there's no rhyme or reason. There's very little pattern to the phenomena, also suggesting that it's not of a controlled nature, that it takes on an appearance almost like you mentioned by the shadow people, that it's, again, by one's own perception.
Right.
What did you see? What did you experience? Well, it may be different for the next person or the next person, and on and on and on.
Exactly.
So the phenomenon might be psychic in nature, and you're saying our culture and our psyche and our belief system might then translate it for us.
And I also believe that it has something to do with environmental. It's definitely has something to do with environment.
But you know what frightens me, or at least concerns me about that possibility is, especially if we are dealing with something interdimensional, how do we ever get a handle on that? How are we able to ever establish? I mean, we may, with Roswell, we can establish the physical reality. But beyond that, we can't, bridge that quantum leap between the technology. It's so advanced that, as we've been hearing for decades, that there's a large faction at the Pentagon that truly believes that this is something supernatural.
Right.
It's almost like the famous scientist Arthur C. Clarke that suggested that when we were to have our first encounter with an alien life form, that it would present itself magically, that it would be like magic, that it would be something that, my God, how did they do that? How could you can't explain it? That's the wonderful thing about magic, and that you don't want to know how they did, how they did that disappearance or whatever the case may be. But as you both know, as far as even psychically, that magic has a tremendous overlapping in the fact that it is relying more and more on mind reading and as far as anticipation of what to expect here, and then something over here happens totally unexpected.
Right.
And that's the UFO phenomena. There is no rhyme or reason. And that's where, do we have to finally accept the fact that we're dealing with something beyond our comprehension, that we will never find the on button, that we will never actually be able to, get in the driver's seat, and like Will Smith in Independence Day and pilot that craft like he's done it 100 times before.
Right.
That the chase will just be ongoing. The mystery will just be perpetual in motion. It will never change in that regard. And I'm personally willing to accept that. I really am.
Cool. So let's take us into the Roswell incident, Don. It was 1947. We were just exiting World War II. The atomic bomb was dropped. And also in 1936-37, we had Orson Welles doing War of the Worlds.
Correct.
Which scared the hell out of everybody.
Very fresh in their memories in 47, yes.
Yeah. I mean, people were jumping out of buildings in the 1936-37 thing from the Orson Welles. So once again, flipping to 1947, there was over 800 sightings that year. And correct me if I'm wrong on everything, okay?
Yes.
It is over 800 or 800 sightings of UFOs in that year of 1947. Am I correct on that?
It was like an invasion that from June 24th leading up to Roswell, you would have thought we were being invaded. I mean, the banner headlines on the major newspapers throughout the country at that time, and just the growing number of sighting reports and objects in formation originating in the North Pacific and then sweeping down to the Southwest and then continuing throughout the rest of the country. The failed attempts by pilots who would be scrambled in their P-51 Mustangs with the hope of even bringing one down. And then beyond that, pictures of them mounting 35 millimeter camera on the front of their aircraft with the hope of at least getting something on film. So there was a level of desperation, a level of panic, and the public outcry as to whose aircraft are we dealing with. But what's interesting, gentlemen, is that there were newspaper polls at that time. The skeptics would have us believe that the people were immediately believing that we were dealing with the technology off the planet. That is not true at all. According to the newspaper polls during that time, it was only 2% of the American population that even considered that this new phenomenon was from off the planet, that it was interplanetary. Mm-hmm. And so we were totally convinced, especially after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that we were dealing with a continuation on that technology, that theme, that it was maybe atomic propulsion, that the Army Air Corps had somehow managed to create an atomic reactor propulsion within a plane. And they were covering it up. It was something that they didn't want the Russians to know about. It was the beginning of the Cold War. And so people resigned themselves to accept, hey, we have a lot of secrets. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that they're not ours.
Right. Now, one of the things is, do you know, was there ever a study on this in 1947, majority of the time when a lot of these UFOs were seen, or flying discs that they were called back in the day,
right?
Was there always storms around that time?
No.
Wasn't every time?
No. In fact, that was one of the more telling situations regarding Roswell, the fact that the ranchers described, and because it'd be during the monsoon season in July and August, the Southwest, where they would get those torrential rains, and that these big storms would develop from the summer heat, and then the cooling of the southern Capitan, the southern tip of the Rocky Mountains. And so it would create that overriding of the two air masses and build up these tremendous thunderstorms. And the ranchers would describe that between the thunderclaps they heard what sounded like an explosion.
Right.
The next morning, the ranch foreman, W.W. Brazel, discovering all that debris, for example. So it was unique to Roswell at that time. And so I know it's often suggested there's a connection, but it really stands strictly with Roswell.
Okay, because I was curious about that because I didn't have knowledge on that, of knowing if a lot, because it's a lot of sightings. Someone's trying to get our attention. That's a fact. And
yes.
So I was wondering if there was always thunderstorms at the time of incidents like that, because like yourself, I investigate things, and so I ask questions on certain things.
Well, that question also,
I will admit that UFOs have demonstrated a long-standing interest in power lines and utility facilities, substations, even bodies of water. And the question in accepting that the propulsion is electromagnetic, that it draws power right out of the very atmosphere. And as a result, there have been cases like in California, like the Jim Pecca case, where the craft was observed with electricity arcing from the power lines into the craft, and then a subsequent power outage throughout the community. That is very common.
Right.
And so I could have, then if you want to take it a step further, I suppose it could be then surmised that there may be an attraction to a thunderstorm. Just the amount of electricity in the air of a storm. But I think it's because most people take cover. They're indoors, and so you just don't have a lot of sightings during storms where UFOs may indeed be present. I guess it's easily to explain away in that regard.
Right. So we're going to take our time on. I want to go through these things. It was July 3rd. At least that's the date that I'm getting. When a Mr. Jimmy Ragsdale and Trudy Truelove, they came across the original crash site that went into a mountain or a hill.
Right.
And they're the original ones who originally saw the bodies. And how many bodies were there originally, Don?
Well, we were the first ones to investigate the Ragsdale account. In fact, I was the first one to interview him extensively. At the time, he was in failing health, and I found his story to be consistent at the time. Unfortunately, with third-party interference, specifically with an estranged daughter, the story became very convoluted, and it changed. And they even changed the location. And as a result, because of that interference, we've had to pretty much disregard the Ragsdale story.
That's what I'm getting from my research into this story, is that there's a lot of people out in the community who are disregarding this information, like they don't put it even in Roswell, some of the stories, because they want to deal with the rancher more.
Though we can document, we can demonstrate that there was an archaeological team from Western Texas Tech under the directorship of Professor William Curry Holden, who we interviewed before he died, and they were the ones who discovered the craft and the bodies just 35 miles north of Roswell. It had always intrigued us why both the sheriff's department in Roswell as well as the fire department would have made any effort to go up into another county where the debris field, where the Brazil debris wreckage was discovered.
Right.
Roswell is within Chavez County. The debris field, the Brazil account, is in Lincoln County. They would have had no jurisdiction up there. They would have had no business going up there.
There was like a 40 mile difference, correct?
Right. And it constantly suggested something much closer to Roswell. And we have from the families of the sheriff, George Wilcox, we have from the family of the fire crew chief, Dan Dwyer, that they indeed did go just north of town. And they too observed the remains of the craft and the bodies. So you tie that in with the archaeologists and then the military accounts when they were describing, well, it was a 45-minute drive. We drove out, 45 minutes. We drove out a little, whereas the debris field would be 3.5 to 4 hours. Big difference.
Right.
And so when we had like the likes of the counterintelligence non-commissioned officer, Master Sergeant Lewis Rickett, who told us when he and his boss, Captain Sheridan Cabot, the head of counterintelligence, drove out, it was about a 45-minute drive. We knew which location they went to. When we had others like Chester Barton, who was with the 603rd Air in Transit Unit, we knew that they went to the site just north of town, just based on the duration, the time involved. So there was a great distinction between the two, which also helped. The one being a short drive and the other being 3 to 4 hours.
Right.
Big difference.
That's where they came up with the idea, the theory of the two crash sites, correct?
Well, there were multiple crash sites.
Right.
There was the debris field, and there was a secondary body site 2.5 to southeast of the debris field, and then there was the main impact site with the remains of the craft, the pod, the capsule. It was egg-shaped, about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, and that was 35 miles north of Roswell, with the 2 additional bodies, and from both civilian and military. And we're talking the sheriff as well as the fire department. There was a survivor, one survivor.
Okay, Steve,
Wow.
you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just like thinking about a few things, but now with the survivor, now so many questions about what you do with the bodies, right? If they're dead, you take them and you probably dissect them or do autopsy, right? We've all seen footage, I'm sure, of the alien autopsy from Roswell.
Well,
But,
the alien video hoax, yes.
Yes, the hoax video. A species that maybe came from another planet, right? Because I also think it's possible that they're from here too, that they may not be extraterrestrial. They might be maybe more advanced. And maybe us in the future. Yeah, us in the future, or a species that is more advanced and maybe somewhere else. They have the whole Antarctica theory that there's things living in caverns or so forth, the hollow earth type of theory. There's a lot of rabbit holes to dive down. If this thing was otherworldly, and it survived for a moment during the crash, it might be like a fish out of water, and it may not have had much to offer us other than doing an autopsy. Did they keep this thing alive? I mean, like, that's what I'm wondering. Like, we had so many advancements happen since 1947 to now, and almost like exponential rate. If you look at the things that we can do with AI and where that's going to take us in next decades, it's just, where did all this come from so quickly? We got down a fast track. From the nuclear bomb till now, everything's just accelerated. So I'm just wondering, if they captured a body, were they able to keep it alive? And if they did, even if the bodies were dead, wouldn't their species, their society, their civilization want those bodies back?
Good questions.
Yeah, and wouldn't there be some sort of, I don't know if they were
rescue attempt?
Yeah, rescue attempt, or it's like, let's go and get them. Right?
What I think Steve's also saying is was there? What do we know about the bodies afterwards?
What do we know about the bodies afterwards, other than the hoax that we were shown, right?
Yeah,
which I think is a diversion. I think it was meant to be found a hoax.
All the eyewitnesses, whether military or civilian, describe the bodies identically, down to even the color of their one-piece uniform, to the number of fingers, to the height, the texture of the skin, identically. The slightest deviation based on what time of day, and even by the rate of decomposition. One of the concerns was that the bodies, and especially those exposed to the elements out in that hot desert, July of 1947, the rapid decomposition, and even the suggestion that even predators were already involved. Okay. Aside from that, we have firsthand military describing the survivor at the very impact site, and then the transportation. I can even tell you who drove the Army ambulance. He was called. They called him Tiny because he was all of 6'6", and even the gate he came in. They came in through the south gate to bypass the front gate and the base proper, where they were able to go directly to the hangar, which was called P3. It was a B-29 hangar, which today is called Building 84. And the base was under lockdown. So people were essentially told to not leave their quarters, to stay put. And even around hangar P3, lethal force was authorized. In fact, we just spoke to another son whose father was stationed there back in 47. and how they were handed grease guns, as they called them, which were submachine guns.
Mm.
And with the orders, anybody would get within 200 feet without authorization. They were to shoot to kill. So,
wow, that's
much
wild.
for as far as security around a weather balloon. I'm sorry,
Right.
the facts don't wash.
No.
Don't coincide. And so then we have first-hand witnesses at the hangar regarding the bodies and the survivor. And then we have at the base hospital, we also have firsthand the bodies as well as the survivor. Well, from all eyewitness accounts, and even from the press at that time, though they were not privy to the bodies involved as much as they did try to get answers regarding the occupants, regarding the rumored, little men, because that was the term that they were using back then. That witnesses were describing the little men or the small bodies. They weren't calling them spacemen or ETs or aliens. No, they kept talking about the little men. And so we know that everything initially from Roswell was transferred to Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio, which would become Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Right.
Predecessor to Area 51. 51 wouldn't come into existence
50s.
for 8 more years.
Right.
Okay? So it was Wright-Pat. And so we had, for example, the testimony of the late Colonel Marion Magruder, who was a triple ace from World War II. His nickname was Black Mac. He confided independently to his 5 sons that being a member of the War College, class of 47-48, that they were on assignment to Wright-Pat in April of 48, which we can document. We have the documents that they were assigned to Wright-Pat in April of 48. Now, it doesn't specify the details of their assignment, but we can put them there.
Mm-hmm.
But according to what he confessed to his sons before he died, that they were shown the wreckage from Roswell. They were allowed to handle it each personally, and they were then taken to another room. The lights came on, and then within a glass enclosure, there the survivor was sitting.
Mm-hmm.
And he described how his heart just went out to this being because he saw that we were treating it like nothing more than a guinea pig. That, you could see that it was essentially imprisoned.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We had a unique specimen, and we were conducting every laboratory test imaginable at that time. His sons would then ask him, well, what became of the survivor? And he would then, recount that they were told months thereafter that it died within weeks after their having actually viewed the survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So your other question about an attempted rescue.
Right.
I mentioned Master Sergeant Lewis Rickett, who was with counterintelligence. Well, Rickett was assigned. We interviewed him numerous times in person down in Seminole, Florida. And he was assigned to assist Dr. Lincoln La Paz, the famous meteor expert. He had been briefed in Washington. La Paz had been part of the Manhattan Project. He had investigated the Japanese Fuga balloon, the Japanese balloon bombs that Imperial Japan had launched over the Pacific, and some made it as far east as Ohio in the last months of World War II. And then his assignment regarding Roswell was to determine the speed and trajectory of this balloon. Speed and trajectory.
Right.
And so Rickett would spend 3 weeks working in the field with him. And according to Rickett, in interviewing all the ranchers up in that surrounding area, one after the other described that for days and weeks thereafter, they were observing glowing objects hovering over that general vicinity and projecting beams of light down to the open range as though looking for something. Well, there were no helicopters at Roswell at that time. There were no helicopters in the area. They didn't hear any engine noises. They described, unknown orbs of light that appeared to be searching for something. And so it's easy to then surmise that there was an attempted rescue, that they were looking for one of their own.
Right.
Because it was never determined who and what these objects, represented. So I'm willing
that kind of leads you to believe there is a caring for each other.
Yes.
If you're looking for something, see, like in a lot of testimonies from people, they talk about when they get abducted and this and that. It's more like an intelligent kind of thing. Like there's no emotion involved, almost like a Spock type of mentality, right? No empathy, no nothing. They do these little experiments on people. But in this case, as like you're speaking right now, is that something or someone of alien force is out there looking for its people, has empathy.
And it's a major curiosity, isn't it?
Yeah.
The idea that these crash victims weren't treated as expendable, as just a mission that had gone awry, and it was their fate, and they accepted it, and there was nothing more to be gleaned by it, unless it was a case of, well, we needed to retrieve the hard evidence before it would fall into.
Right.
Maybe the concern was that it would fall into even the Soviet hands at that time.
Right.
Roswell was rife with Soviet spies back in 1947, especially after the bomb. And they weren't typically Russian, because they would have stood out easily. So they typically were of Mexican background that would be slipped across the border, and they would take on all types of menial jobs throughout New Mexico and then report across the border to the Russian spies.
Right.
That went on for years. So maybe it has something. But again, anytime we try to speculate, we try to think alien, I think we make a mistake.
All right. Let me ask you this question. Now, majority, I would say, of America or the whole world knows about the Roswell incident.
Yes.
As we get to Mac Brazil, he finds it on his grounds, on his farm. Majority of everybody knows that he was with his son, and he finds it, and they come across the materials. And the materials, when they crush it, takes form. But I have a question for you. And we understand all about the controversy and the conspiracies that follow after this. But I have a question is, why? Why would this crash happen? How and why? Is there something that was more intelligent that was going on in the background? Because think about it. We had over 800 sightings in 1947 alone. So is somebody trying to get our attention? And if nobody else wants to give attention to me, you want to know what? I'm going to give attention to them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be like a Trojan horse from Greece. And I'm going to go ahead and crash in there because I need to make communication. Maybe there's something that we need to tell the people, these human beings, because in 1945, we just had the atomic bomb killing over 50,000 people. Is there a message that has to be known? And should we go out there and attempt to give it to them because they ain't really coming to me? What do you think about that, Don?
Well, as theories go, and as even postulated by my scientific director, Dr. Mark Rodiger, who replaced Hynek at the Center for UFO Studies in Chicago, it would certainly soften the blow. You announce your arrival not with your proverbial, landing on the White House front lawn. And what would our typical response be? We would probably shoot first and, ask questions later.
Right.
And the fact that it happened out in the high desert, of New Mexico, where it's hardly a threat to anyone except maybe the local prairie dogs and jackrabbits, that type of thing. And so that too may demonstrate the lack of discernment and concern on the part of their recovery efforts. The fact that it was out there for days before it was even reported, so it was hardly any level of urgency to make a recovery of the craft before we should locate it. So all wonderful theories, and I love the fact that when I'm with my colleagues, we can sit there that everything is free game. Put it on the table. and let's see if the shoe fits. I think too often skeptics, they have, for example, they have a preconceived theory, and then they set out to prove it. They cherry pick details that they're able to shoehorn and make fit. That's not science.
No.
You go wherever the evidence takes you, and that's what we've done. I can't emphasize enough that I was a total skeptic on Roswell.
Yeah.
When we first went down to New Mexico, we thought we'd wrap this up in a single weekend and prove that this was indeed nothing but a weather balloon device or something just as prosaic. And it's because the witnesses, true to form, they were the last ones who theorized, who speculated. As I had mentioned earlier, that when they would describe the bodies as little people, small people, little men, that type of thing, they described what they observed. They didn't call it a spaceship. They just described the shape of the craft, that type of thing. They described the characteristics of the wreckage. I think a wonderful example is a daughter of one of the adjoining ranches. Her name was Sally Tetralini. And it was Brazel's very son, Bill Jr., who drove up one day in his pickup truck, and in an attempt to obviously impress the young lady, he brought out this piece of metal, and she's watching as he is, opening his hand, and she's watching it flow like water over the palm of his hand, and then he crunches it right back up, and then back and forth. No matter how often he released its grip, this would unfurl, it would unravel. And her human response was, my God, wouldn't it be wonderful if clothes would be made of that material and I would never have to iron again? But it creates a wonderful visual of what she had to be observing to have that impression. And so they were describing details in the most earthly, of terms, because this was unprecedented. First of all, there's nothing in the Army field manual, crash flying saucer. Okay, this is what we do, A, B. No. And there's nothing in the novels, nothing in the entertainment, TV, radio at that time. You had Buck Rogers, you had Flash Gordon. What were aliens flying back before Roswell, before the summer 40? They were flying rocket ships.
Rockets, being the merciless.
How did aliens look? They look like us. So again, they described to the best of their abilities what their perception, what their first, thought processes were. And they were wonderful.
And they weren't all meeting at a local bar where they all gathered before the fact and said, all right, everybody's going to be 4'2", gray skin, slitted eyes, and this and that. Right. Each and every one of them, after the fact, gave the description that went along with the other person's description.
Precisely. And whether the most high-ranking 4-star general down to a 7-year-old boy, they all reacted the same way. They all reacted. I did a paper a number of years ago, gentlemen, entitled The Extraordinary Reaction to an Extraordinary Event. And I had a noted psychologist who came up to me and he went, Don, I was a total skeptic. And he said, I never saw it put that way before. You demonstrated that, again, no matter what the training, what the experience, that these people all behaved the same way, that this was something profound, it was unprecedented. And as a result, it suggested something beyond the pale, something extraordinary, something that all they could do to get a handle on it was just describe it as it took place.
Right. Don, let me stop you there for a second. We have a segment. Steve, roll it.
Get ready because it's time for Tales by the Graveside.
Penelope, can you please explain to me why you believe this is your sister and why she's not at rest?
Yes, well, it was the summer of 1975, and Ophelia was in love with an older man named Leon. Leon was a very slender black gentleman, about 30 years old, and he used to come by our estate at night and go for walks, long walks with Ophelia, as our parents slept in their beds. On one of these walks at around 11 p.m. by the pond, I could hear her arguing. So I opened my bedroom window to see what was wrong. I saw Ophelia slapping and punching Leon as she cried. Leon slipped on one of the rocks by the pond and fell very, very hard. And he fell into the water, and Ophelia jumped on him and grabbed him by his hair and held him underwater. In all her rage, I left the house to stop everything from continuing. As I got to the pond, I saw Ophelia running and crying and running away. To my horror, I saw Leon's body motionless and his head submerged in the water, and his throat was cut and blood was all in the water. I cried to Ophelia. I said, Ophelia, please stop running. But she continued and ran out on the road and got hit by a truck, and she was instantly killed. That saddened me, oh, so badly. 2 people lost their souls that day, their lives. I believe through the tragedy my sister is lost, wandering from the cemetery to our estate, looking for Leon and possibly forgiveness. Neal, can you please help us?
Well, Penelope, I will take on this task of trying to help you. You sound very true to what you're talking about, and I want to help you.
And now, back to the Paranormal Guys podcast.
Back to Mr. Don Schmitt. One other question I have is that, like I said before, we all know about majority of all the story. But one of the things I found so interesting is all the lies and this conspiracies that continued on and on. Like they originally started out with Project Mogul, and if it was Project Mogul that fell to the earth in Roswell, New Mexico, where was the black box?
Right.
The rancher said that it's happened more than many times that he's got those weather balloons hit the ground.
We confirmed that. We saw when we first arrived at the ranch house, there was an empty water tank just brimming, just overflowing with balloons, weather balloons that they had recovered on the ranch through the decades. Mm-hmm. They were the last ones who were strangers to these balloon devices, right? And specifically because they would typically be tagged that you return, the instrument package and you get a $5 reward. Back then, that was a day's work. And so, yes, $5. And so they were always on the lookout for these devices.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, that's crazy. And then they had the Man-High thing. They came out years later talking, oh, no, this is, it was Operation Man-High that was in 1947 happened, even though it did not really start until 1955, I believe. 52, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So many years have gone by, at least a good 5 to 7 years have gone by.
5 to 7 years.
And so now you want to throw in another lie.
You also tied it in as far as with Project High Dive and Project Excelsior. So this was, as we had a growing number of first-hand witnesses to the bodies, they had to make an effort to explain away the fact that balloons don't have pilots. And so again, they came up with the anthropomorphic wooden crash dummies, these test dummies that were dropped from high altitude, 6 feet tall, wearing harnesses and jumpsuits and parachutes. And the key thing there, gentlemen, is we also determined by the very creator of the project that whenever they would impact with the ground, they would dismember. They would break up with limbs flying every which way. So I'm sorry. And it's 5 years removed. So you can't time travel from 52 back to 47. Maybe the government feels they can get away with that. Well, the government does. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to suggest that the government can't revise history. They've never done that before.
Right.
You know what? I think one of the main problems was, and I'll get to Steve because I know he has a question, is it's because majority of people who wanted to learn about Roswell and talked about Roswell are people who had interest. Majority of people that the government brought into it didn't want nothing to do with it So they all came up with these crazy different scenarios that they thought that everybody was stupid enough to just go, makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Steve, you got a question?
Well, quickly, just let me respond to that for a moment.
Sorry.
It's a typical ploy on the part of the Pentagon. They bring in, most often, someone in the reserves, no longer connected, no longer having access, no longer having clearance, and they give them an assignment. We want you to research and come up with an alternative explanation for Roswell in 1947. So you have, in this case, Captain James McAndrew in the reserves, Air Force Reserves, and the wonderful thing that the media and most people really don't understand is that he becomes an authority on Project Mogul and nothing else. He can't slip. He can't accidentally mess up, tell a lie about Project Mogul, because it's all he knows. He's the authority. So he's at never a risk of stepping out of bounds, saying the wrong thing about Roswell, because he doesn't know anything else.
Right.
So it's ingenious on the part of the military, but that's what they have typically done for decades, and they get away with it. But we challenge it, we question it, and the media, unfortunately, in most cases, are willing accomplices. They just go along with it because they want to stay attached.
Bought and paid for. Bought and paid for.
It's kind of like
exactly bought and paid for.
It's kind of like the lying spouse, like the government. You know they're lying, right? You know they're gaslighting you, and it wasn't a woman; it was a wooden dummy.
Yeah,
I know. But we know, and we all have a sense. We know from what we've seen and what's available out there to research, your research, your books, and so forth. Something's going on that isn't what we're being told.
Well, something I always point out to the media, that anytime they should interview someone in the government, someone in the military, they have to realize they're speaking to someone highly compartmentalized.
Yeah.
That they only know what they have had access to, and they're not going to volunteer anything else. And as a result, they can't speak out of line.
Right.
The difference is, in my case, and like with my partner Thomas J. Carey and my former partner Kevin D. Randall, we're not limited. We're not restricted. We have been able to come at this from every direction. And as a result, we are not under any restriction to speak about this.
Right.
And if they ever want to stop us, it's too late. That genie's been out of the bottle for a lot of years.
So there's this thing in the UFO-ology world, right, of these men in black, or the people that visit you if you go
MJ12,
too far.
is that what that is? Men in Black, MJ12, right?
No, altogether, Men in Black. These sinister.
Men in Black. All right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, these shadowy figures that will pay a visitation to someone who has seen something they shouldn't have seen, or they've experienced something they shouldn't have been there at that time. And there's even Air Force documents dating back to the 50s that they were after, that they were looking to locate these individuals because they were impersonating Air Force officials, that they were identifying themselves as from this military facility, or with this rank within the service, and they weren't. So they were in strict violation of military protocol in that regard. It also borders on the paranormal, on the psychic, in that so often they're very shadowy, they're very unearthly in some of the accounts.
They're almost cryptid-like, yeah.
That they will arrive totally unannounced, and they will, they will present credentials of being an insurance agent or someone who would do a door-to-door type of, visitation, and typically dressed in black, typically driving black cars. People describe that the cars will be 25, 30 years old and yet smell like they're right off the showroom, that their clothes look like they're right off the rack, and that they will become less and less animated and start slowing down, and almost to the point like they're running out of gas.
Mhm.
There are many such accounts where they seem to be slipping back into somewhere else.
Okay.
So there we're talking again. Is there that crossover?
Right.
So if it be one lone account, okay, but there are hundreds of these stories
Right.
of these men in black that will pay specifically UFO witnesses these visitations.
Now,
So my question, though,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
and I'm curious because we are in the paranormal guys, and we do focus on the paranormal a lot. And with your research into Roswell, I would imagine if there's any validity to the Men in Black story that maybe they would have visited the folks involved, the ranchers, or any, anybody like showing off to a girlfriend a piece of metal. Is there any thing that you've heard of?
Oh, yes. Many accounts of suits as far as all around Roswell within days after the incident.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Don.
No, but all types of accounts. One specifically I'll give you. It was radio reporter Frank Joyce from radio station KGFL. And he had spoken to the ranch foreman Brazo, and Brazo already had alluded to him the body site, that he had seen bodies which were not human. And Brazo Joyce would arrive at the radio station in one of the subsequent mornings for his radio broadcast, and a car pulls up, and there it's his boss, Walt Whitmore Sr., tells him to get in the back seat. They're going to go for a ride. And in the back seat, there's a suit sitting, not saying a word, just staring ahead. And they take him out into the desert to a one-room shack, and guess who then? He's told to get out and wait in the shack, and then who comes stepping into the building but the rancher, Brazo himself. But he too was brought out there. And Brazo, according to Joyce, asked him if he wouldn't say another word about this. In other words, they would both be in a lot of trouble if he kept pursuing the story. So he wanted to hear from Joyce that he was going to drop the story. And then that Brazo would make the comment as he would leave, Mr. Joyce, our lives will never be the same after today. That type of thing. Okay.
Wow.
So, but who was that gentleman in the back seat? The suit just sitting there, as though, taking control, taking charge of the situation.
Matching the description of Men in Black, right?
Matching the script. And according to Joyce, it was the strangest looking person he had ever seen.
What happens if it was actually the aliens? I'm going to bring up something that just recently happened in the headlines recently, okay? We have this young lady on this airplane.
I saw that.
Pointing out, she's like, that person is not real. And I have to say, because I pay attention to people, and I'm looking at her, and she
was terrified. She was terrified. Yeah.
She did not look like she was on drugs or on alcohol, any influence by any means necessary. And she's looking back there, and she's like, that person is not real, blah, blah, blah. Right. She is completely frightened. Right. What happens if that they are so incorporated in our world now, which I truly do believe.
I can accept that.
Yeah.
That they've infiltrated.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That they are at the, could be sitting right in Washington today, as far as we know.
Right.
Right.
And I have no problem with that, because,
go ahead.
Again, if we ask, why are they here? It can't be just to nightly abduct people and take, samples. After a few people, you realize we're all the same. We all bleed the same color. We all essentially have the same DNA.
We're 99.9. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not the most interesting creatures in the universe.
No.
So there's got to be a game plan. There's got to be something long term. And that indeed may be part of it, that there's been this indoctrination, this infiltration. And you, like you'll say, you never know. You walk down the sidewalk, of any major city and who you may actually be confronting at any given moment may not be from here.
Right.
What function would we serve them? Like, why would they be amongst us? Why would they even bother if we're that uninteresting?
Or if we go by the Twilight Zone episode, The Served Man, we could be in the cookbook, right?
Oh, dear Lord.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy.
Dear Lord.
It's possible. I mean, look what we do. We treat the cattle pretty nice until
we eat them. That's right. You're absolutely right, Steve. You're absolutely right. Well, you know what, Don? I'm going to tell you something. I know that we were limited on time, and I appreciate the time that you've given us. And I hope somewhere in the future we can continue this conversation.
We have to. We got to do part 2. I agree.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Great. Yeah. If we can do that somewhere down the line when you have time, we'll send you another email on this. This is Mr. Don Schmitt, great author. I'm going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, great speaker and just a very nice guy. He got back to me right away after I sent him this email. I met him at Sam Maranto's second thing in Starved Rock. And him and his wife, just very, very nice people, very real people, just like everybody else.
My wife. Thank you.
Yeah. Just real people who just want answers like you and I. So, Mr. Don Schmitt, do you have anything going on that you would like to put out to the people?
We just finished filming with Unsolved Mysteries, which it will not air until January, but it's on Netflix. So it's a huge audience. It's way beyond Ancient Aliens with just a few million viewers. This will be worldwide, 100 million people.
Nice.
And I'm just finishing up a co-script on the history of the atomic bomb, and we're waiting on a TV series out of London. We've finished 8 scripts regarding that, and I'm working with former NASA engineer Mark Chesney, and we're co-writing a book on J.L. and Hynek. So from our perspective of actually having worked with the man all those years.
Nice. That is, man, you are one busy man, dude. I thought I was busy. Man.
When you love what you do, it comes easy. Thank you.
Yeah, when I retire at the end of this year, I'm going to be doing a lot more of what I like to do. Because I have a passion just like yourself, and I'm going to tag along Steve with me. He has no other choice.
Yeah, I can't escape this.
All right, so once again, that's Mr. Don Schmitt, and that's Steve Leinweber. Say goodbye, Steve.
Bye, everybody.
And
Thank you, Don.
boys and girls.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll do it again. Look forward to it.
Of course, and always, boys and girls. Boo.